The Navigating Disability podcast often discusses topics including disability, injury, mental health, and mentions of sensitive issues such as trauma and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care while listening. Welcome to Navigating Disability, the podcast where we explore the challenges, victories, and unique perspectives of people living with disabilities. Today, we're honoured to have Eliot Carroll join us. Eliot is a passionate advocate for disability rights, a public speaker, and a change maker dedicated to creating a more inclusive world. With lived experience and a drive to challenge society's norms, Eliot works tirelessly to amplify the voices of the disability community and push for meaningful change. In this episode, we'll dive into Eliot's journey, the barriers he's faced, and the impact of your advocacy. Get ready for an insightful and empowering conversation. Let's jump in. Welcome, Eliot.
Hi there, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
I was quite a sick kid, so I was at Great Ormond Street Hospital in London from about the age of 7, so in and out of hospital. When I was about 7, they thought I had cancer, and it turned out to be a different condition, quite a rare condition called Langerhans Cell Histiocytosis X, which is effectively where your white blood cells start attacking your own body. And so it's quite a sort of a rare condition. I had numerous sort of surgeries and stuff when I was a kid. As a side effect of that, it can cause a thing called diabetes insipidus, not diabetes and syphilis, which is a completely different thing. Diabetes insipidus, which is where your pituitary gland fails and you're no longer able to regulate the water balance in your body. So they tried to prevent that from happening by giving me radiation therapy when I was about sort of 10, I think. A consequence of that, it's believed that radiation damaged my trigeminal nerve, which caused acute bilateral trigeminal neuralgia, which wasn't fun. It's basically where pain receptors in your face, they just go off. So you're just in intense pain for a long period of time. So I actually had brain surgery twice to deal with that because I had it on both sides. And I was pain-free for about 20 years, which was amazing. I kind of got my life back. And then in 2017, it came back again, which was hugely frustrating. So since then, I've been on sort of a substantial concoction of drugs, medication, and I've kind of blurred my way through to where I am now. You know, just setting up the company back in 2010 and sort of pushing forward to 2025, which is scary when you think about like the company's been going for 15 years, which is terrifying.
Absolutely. So if we go back to when you were 7 and you spent a fair bit of time in hospital and you had the diagnosis, how did that affect your childhood?
So I was on steroids when I was a kid, which sort of basically made me, side effect of some steroids can be the sort of moon face that you get. So I put on a lot of weight when I was in sort of final years of primary school. So that was difficult. The medication I take for the diabetes insipidus is like a nasal spray. But back then, those kind of sprays didn't exist. I mean, this makes me sound ancient. So what you had to do, this medication had to be refrigerated, and the way that it worked is that you had to suck it out through a straw to a certain level, and then blow it up your own nose.
Wow.
But because that medication had to be refrigerated, it just meant that I couldn't do so much as a kid. So I couldn't go on camping trips and blah blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was frustrating. Also, being that sort of sick kid, I was quite good at judo as a young kid, and I gave that up. So a lot of the kind of sport options no longer became an option, which was a little bit frustrating, and has dictated the fact that I'm not really into sport at my ripe old age.
Who supported you most around that time?
Oh, my family, like my mum was amazing. I mean, it must have been, now I'm older and I've got kids of my own. The idea of them going through something like that and that sort of, putting on that brave face and being there and continue to support without ever showing, my parents never faltered. There was never any sort of worry that they showed, any concern that they showed. They just had this kind of attitude of just get on with it and you'll be fine.
And you don't realise, do you, until you've got your own kids, actually what they probably went through.
100%, 100%. I think as a kid, you see your parents as these kind of omnipotent beings. They are, and it's only when you get older you realize they're just people trying to do trying to do the best thing.
The best they
Which
can at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, sorry, what age did you have the operation?
The brain
The
operation.
brain one?
Yeah, so I had those in my early 20s. So yeah, it was because it was bilateral. I had one when I was kind of mid 20s, other one when I was late 20s.
And so, why do you think it reoccurred so many years later?
You know what? I've got no idea. So speaking to, I've got involved with the Trigeminal Neuralgia Association in the UK, and speaking to them and speaking to various different sort of medical professionals, it's quite rare to be pain free for 20 years after the operation. That they kind of expect it to reoccur at some stage. In my mind, it was done and dusted. I thought, once I had the operation, it was all good. I didn't believe that it would ever sort of resurface. But speaking to people, that is quite common for it to.
We hear that all the time when people say, we spoke to another lady this morning and she was in a car, was it this morning? She was in a car accident
Yeah.
and she expected to have the operation and get up and walk the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just had no idea that she was paralyzed for life. It seems to be a common occurrence that people either don't hear or they're not told about what the possible consequences are.
Yeah, I mean, back when I had the operation, it was a very different time, and so from a medical perspective, it was very sort of early days with this sort of surgery. Whereas now, sort of getting back involved with the sort of Trigeminal Neuralgia UK organisation, it becomes apparent that there's more known about it now than there was back when I had the conditions. Yeah, it feels that there have been huge advancements in some respects, but not in others.
So there's no other options available to you now?
No, I mean it's just medication, I guess, until it gets to the point where the medication no longer works. So I mean, when I was a kid, I was on a lot of medication. So through university, for example, wasn't able to drink, which I look back on,
Not a bad
which
thing.
a little bit a little bit frustration because your uni years, that's what you're going to do. But yeah, I didn't drink back then. Yeah, I think so. Medication is one route, and then eventually that sort of wears off. Your body kind of builds up tolerance. After that, who knows? I don't know. Try not to think about it.
So with your diagnosis, was it ascertained that it was hereditary, or is it just something that's happened and they can't explain it?
It's just something that's happened, and
Okay.
they can't explain it. A doctor once described me as a medical oddity, which
Oh.
was, I mean,
Oh.
that's I've been called worse, put it like that.
Yeah. So have you ever felt stuck in your circumstance? Because a lot of people with diagnosis and things like that feel like they're stuck and that they're being held back. Have you ever felt that?
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of frustrating. You sort of almost split your mind and your body into two different sort of sections. So I get
Yeah.
frustrated at my own body if I feel like myself is letting down myself, if that kind
Yeah.
of makes sense.
Yeah.
So I do get frustrated, especially when it prevents me from doing things or it impacts sort of family life. One thing I guess I got from my parents is the fact that I don't want to worry my kids with all of this stuff. They know that daddy's face hurts occasionally. That the scars on the back of my head, they think came from when daddy fought a bear. That's and my oldest is
Yeah.
11 and she still believes that. So
And
we have
that's
to.
the thing, isn't it? They look at us as parents as, we're the strong ones and we can never be defeated. So it's that, as a parent, we kind of shield them from a lot of things to protect them.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And like I think that's where I sort of there's intentional and unintentional masking. 80% of disabilities are unseen, and
Yeah.
when you have an invisible illness, there is that kind of intentional masking where you don't want to show that you are different from anybody else. You don't want to show people there's that chink in the armor, I guess.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, there's the unintentional masking where in a way you want people to understand that you have a condition and to at least understand it or be aware of it. So
Yeah.
there's almost those two strands, sort of the intentional and unintentional
You kind of
masking.
end up in that catch-22 position. Yeah.
100%. It's difficult, because I don't want people to sort of judge me on just my conditions because
Hmm.
I'm more than that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would be nice for that to be acknowledged occasionally.
Yeah.
Just yeah,
A
Yeah.
little bit of acceptance. Hmm.
yeah,
Those
100%.
times when it was really tough, Did you ever feel like giving up?
When it was really, really bad, I mean, it was really, I mean, it's horrible. So it got to a stage where I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, I couldn't touch my face. I was just in intense pain. They called trigeminal neuralgia the suicide disease because the pain is so intense. It's said that it's one of the worst pains to medical science. So, you know, it was pretty bad. I think with that condition, when things do get that bad, you do sometimes feel like giving up. I mean, hence why it's called the suicide disease. But I think, you know, I've always been good at sort of compartmentalizing stuff, I guess. The way that I deal with it is I split myself into two, my body and my mind. And it's my body that's letting me down, and my mind's just got to kind of continue. And you almost sort of push stuff away, almost like it's not real. I think that's one way that I've dealt with it, almost like it's not real. And everything will be fine. You know, everything will be
Yeah.
fine if things worked out. Don't worry about it. It's cool. You know, so
Well,
like
it's
when
really a mindset thing.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, when I had the first operation, I remember the surgeon coming around and speaking to me. I mean, they have to give you kind of worst case scenarios, and I was at the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel. I remember I was on my own that night, and one of the surgeons came around and they said, you know, when you wake up, you may not be the same person you are now. Which is a terrifying thing to hear when
Yeah.
you're in your 20s, your early 20s. And I just remember calling a friend of mine and just kind of, you know, talking through that and her sort of talking me down a little bit. You know, I was on my own. I was nervous. I was thinking about stuff, and she kind of took me down a little bit. And actually, having the support of friends and family has been a massive help in getting through all of this. So you know, when you have that little bit of a wobble, there are people there just to help out and push you through.
What advice would you give someone that's, you know, feels stuck in their disability and it's holding them back? What would be your key piece of advice?
Don't allow it to.
Mm.
And I know that's very easy to say. You know, when I'm in pain, you know, it becomes all encompassing, and you can't
Yeah.
think of anything else. But it's you've got to just try. In my mind, you get one shot at life, and these challenges are sent, and you've just got to try your best to get over it. And it can be hard. It can be
Yeah.
difficult, but you can do it. I'm testament to that in a way. I mean, you know, I'm still on loads of medication. I still have difficulties with a number of different conditions. You just want to try and sort of carry on as best you can. You get
So
one shot.
don't give
You got
up on yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
also don't allow it to, you know, I don't see my disability as me. In fact, for a long time, I wouldn't even consider myself to be disabled, you know, although technically I am. And I don't want that illness to define me. You know, it's part of me. It's part of my journey to where I am now. It doesn't define me, hopefully. You know, I want
You're
to be
Elliot.
Yeah.
exactly. I want to be more, as more than that. And then that, I guess, comes back to the intentional and unintentional masking. You know, because people automatically assume if you've got a disability, you know, maybe you're in a wheelchair or you know,
You're
it's visible.
less.
Absolutely. And actually, as I said before, 80% of people with disabilities are unseen. And it's just trying to ensure that that doesn't define you. You're more than that.
What would you say to a caregiver that was looking after someone with your diagnosis? How would you, what advice would you give to them about caring for someone in your situation?
So when it was really bad, I did sort of go into myself a little bit. You know, if you're in a lot of pain and it's just all encompassing, you sort of go into a little bit of a shell. And I think just being there, not sort of forcing yourself upon somebody is huge. So when I needed somebody, like I mean, my mum was great. When I needed somebody, they were there. When you're in a lot of pain, you're facing issues. Sometimes you do go into yourself a little bit. It can be difficult, but
And it
I
sounds
think
like it's not about actually doing anything other than being there in case you are needed, but
Yeah.
for someone to
100%.
know that you're there.
100%. And you know, I totally accept that there are people with various different conditions and various different disabilities, and their needs are completely different. You know, I think it's looking at the individual needs and working back from there. So it may well be that there are people that require that sort of very kind of hands-on, proactive approach from a care perspective, and others that just need somebody to be there when they're you know in that darkness, I guess.
What are your hopes for the future, Elliot?
Hopes for the future is that they discover some kind of cure, I guess. There is no magic pill, despite in a way my sort of brain telling me there is. I hope that they're able to find some kind of cure for the condition. I count myself very lucky in the sense that I had those 20 years pain free, and speaking to other people with the condition whilst being sort of involved in the charity, it kind of highlights how destructive the disease can be. You know, there are people that have lost their jobs as a result of it, relationships that have broken down as a result of it. I kind of count myself pretty lucky that I haven't been impacted by that. But, you know, I think having a cure, not just for me, but for, you know, everybody that suffers with this kind of horrific condition. So yeah, just a cure. I mean, medical science has evolved so much from when I was a kid. So let's hope that there's something there. I mean, I think part of the problem, if you've got a rare condition, there's no money there. You know, if
Yeah.
the condition is sort of well known and widespread, there's money that gets pumped into finding a cure. You know, with those more kind of unusual illnesses and disabilities, there isn't necessarily that sort of financial support. But who knows? Who knows what will happen in the future?
I guess you just got to keep talking and build awareness, don't you? That's key,
Absolutely. Absolutely,
having the
yeah.
conversation.
Just building awareness, just so that people understand. I think it's the understanding that's there. You know, I remember sitting on a conference call, like on a Zoom call, when it was particularly bad. This was, I guess, through COVID. I was kind of chatting away, and the pain. You know, I guess the way to describe it is like electric shocks. So it builds up and builds up and builds up, and it's just intense. And me on this conference call trying to hide the fact that I was in this pain and sort of smiling through it, and trying to ignore it. And actually, you know, so I could like tears streaming down my face, but I'm trying to be all fine. And I think looking back on that, I wish in a way I just kind of acknowledged it and said, look, I'm really sorry, guys, but you know, I'm in a lot of pain at the moment. Can we come back to it?
Why didn't
But
you?
I guess it ties back into. I mean, I don't want to get all kind of deep and
Please.
psychoanalyze myself, but I think growing up, going back to talking about my parents, kind of being these sort of omnipotent beings, and just strong and not showing any weakness. My dad is a prime one for this. You know, you don't show any weakness, boy. It's that kind of thing. It's not, which is not healthy. Is, you know, I guess there's an element of toxic masculinity around that. But as a result, I definitely kind of try and put on a brave face. So I will hide stuff a lot. So for example, with my kids, as I said before, they don't know the extent of my conditions, and it's just, you know, just trying to. I don't. You don't want to kind of admit weakness, I guess, to
Yeah.
yourself. You know, it's like, you know, screw
Make
you.
you
You
feel
know,
less of a person.
yeah. I'm not going to let it beat me. You know, it's basically my body fighting against me, and I'm not going to let it beat me. So, you know, I do. Again, it comes back to that intentional and unintentional masking. You know, so that's part of it. I didn't want those people on the other side of the conference call to go, okay, what's up with Eliot? You know, it's that kind of, yeah. I guess it's a defensive thing more than anything. It's a defensive play.
How does it affect your time with your family and your children? Like you said, you haven't told them the extent of your condition.
Yeah.
What happens when you are in a big flare up and your children are around?
My wife's pretty good in that sort of situation. So I sort of retreat to my cave, and just try and focus on. I mean, because there's no rhyme or reason to it. When it happens, it happens. Yeah, it's so I just kind of go away into my sort of cave, and my wife kind of sort of shoulders a lot of the sort of responsibility at that point of looking after the
So
kid.
are they extended periods where you're suffering, or is it just little bouts of?
It can be like, you know, it can go on for ages. It can go on for a week. It can go, you
Oh,
know,
wow.
like flare ups. So last night, for example, I've got a few sort of flare ups. It's tricky because, and I think the main thing is the amount of medication I'm on, because it really kind of impacts life. My short term memory is virtually non-existent. I can fall asleep anywhere. There was one time I was in the kitchen. We got a dog, and I was laying on the kitchen floor, you know, this tiled floor, stroking the dog. Next thing I know, I'm awake. All the lights are off. The dog's gone. My wife's gone, and I'm
Just left
just
you there.
on the tiles in the kitchen, which just. But yeah, like I can fall asleep at the drop of that. You know, so years ago, I used to be in a band, like many moons ago, and I remember kind of sitting in the recording studio, and we were listening to the track, and then the guys all turned around to look at me, and I was just like sort of
Boom.
passed in Yeah, just because this, yeah, the medication is a real pain.
I have to admit though, kudos to your wife for leaving you on the floor. Just like, you'll be right.
No,
Did she give
yeah,
you a
yeah,
blanket at least?
yeah, no,
Blanket?
she's
No,
like,
I
yeah,
just left
yeah,
her there. Took the
yeah.
dog.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for somebody living with somebody with that condition as well, it's difficult,
Yeah.
there's only so much sympathy I guess you can have, like when you're constantly sort of saying, oh, this hurts or I'm in pain here, it is challenging for relationships. I totally get it, and I understand why there's relationship breakdown.
And we've heard that a lot, haven't we, Kate? That it's a strain on the carers and the whole family, not just the person with the disability or diagnosis.
Massively, and so there's guilt that comes with that.
Yeah.
I often feel guilty that I'm putting, my family through, even though I try and hide it as much as possible, but putting them through problems that, are frustrating. So, they're hugely frustrating for me, but frustrating for them as well.
Yeah.
Because they've got to take up extra load as well. Your wife will have to take up when you can't help out. So
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, yeah. And it's, like my conditions, that there are a number of conditions that all kind of relate to each other. So I'm at the doctor's, I'm up at the hospital quite a lot. And, it's that as well is frustrating. And thankfully the business, there are a lot of great people that sort of help sort of shoulder some of that responsibility. I think it comes back again to that, just people being there when you need them. And
Yeah.
and I'm kind of lucky in that respect, that from both a sort of family and professional perspective, I've got people that kind of step up and support me when I'm having a bit of a wobble. I
You've
guess
got a
it's
good community around you.
100%. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
what are
Yeah.
some misconceptions that society hold about people with disability that you'd like to unravel?
The first thing goes back to what I was saying earlier on about, the unseen disabilities. People quick to judge. I remember one time because I have kidney issues and stuff like this. So one time I went to the toilet. It was a disabled loo, and I sort of went into the sort of disabled toilet. And then I came back out again, and somebody was like, "Well, what are you using that for? You shouldn't, you're not disabled." And it was really kind of frustrating because actually, I did need the disabled loo. I needed to go in there and actually, stop being so judgy. Like it's just judgment. Just a little bit of empathy, a little bit of understanding would be nice. I guess that's
And
kind of what I'm.
kindness. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Just be
yeah,
kind.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And I know it can be difficult because you feel like you're on the back step straight away before you get into a situation. You feel like you're always on the back step, and actually, I think having a disability can be an advantage. Just because you're disabled doesn't mean that you're useless. There's so much people can offer, and it's having those different perspectives that can. So we work in production, in advertising, and obviously you're looking to appeal to different demographics, and actually having somebody who kind of understands some of those challenges that disabled people go through isn't a bad thing. It's a
Mm.
positive thing. Just because you're disabled doesn't mean that you can't do a job, or you can't give yourself to a job. Actually, I feel it's in a weird way been a benefit as well as something that's created issues.
And we hear that all the time that disabled people are some of the best employees because they've been given a chance, they're loyal, they stay for a long time. They just need to be given the opportunity.
Yeah.
And that is the key. Be given the opportunity. I think that also there's a weird societal reaction to disability. I think maybe people feel awkward.
Yeah.
People don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. So they sort of
I'll just
shun it.
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
Hundred percent. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%.
What does the future look like for Elliot?
My neighbor once said to me, whatever the situation, always look for the light. And that I've kind of taken to heart. And so
I've heard
I
that
look for
so
the
many times. Look for the
Yeah.
light. I
yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
And
Just look.
life's too short and it's fleeting, so live every moment with purpose. And it's true.
100%. You've just got to look for the light, no matter how dark the situation. I'm also an advocate of playing with the cards you're dealt. You just got to play. This
Yeah.
is your hand. You just got to
Can't
play it.
change
Play
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's very easy to sort of slip into a mindset where you're sort of feeling sorry for yourself, or why am I in this situation? And whilst I totally get it and I've been there, it's a complete waste of time, because you are what you are where you are, and you can either give up or you can just roll up your sleeves and go, what, sod it, I'm just going to get on with it and make the best of what I've got. And it can be difficult and it can be challenging and it's not easy. And I don't want to sort of patronize people that everybody can sort of just I'll just get on with stuff when some of the medical challenges can be huge. But I guess it's that mindset. It's just rolling up your sleeves and just getting on with it because there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Look
it's
for the
such a short time.
Just look for the light.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you so much, Elliot, for sharing your journey with us. We've thoroughly enjoyed
And getting up so early.
getting up so early.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to have my sixth coffee now. So
And hopefully, we'll be able to bring some connection to other people who are in the same situation as you.
yeah, hopefully it's just don't give up. Just keep punching. Punch up.
Thank you so much. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Elliot.